Hello, lovely accounting class. I'm going to now show you a little bit about Google Sheets. I highly recommend it as part of the accounting project, mostly because I think it's an easier way to develop a lot of the things you need to use. Starting with opening from my Google Drive, so you can see exactly how to open a new Google Sheet. Again, sorry, from your Google Drive, that was just hit New, cancel, New. Oh, it thinks I want to create a new folder, sorry. Anyway, New, Google Sheets, and you'll open a blank spreadsheet, not a template. So I'm going to pause the video periodically and just input things so you don't have to see the more tedious part, honestly. This first, though, just so you know, is where on my first tab, my first sheet, I'm going to move this actually down a little bit so you can see this is sheet 1. And on sheet 1, I would do, if I had a pre-existing business, I would do a list of accounts. I'm going to input those now. I'm sorry, just realized in case you've never used it before, you just click on wherever you want to start, and you just type like you would normally. I hit enter to go from one cell to another. And I'll input a whole bunch of assets, liabilities. I'll put in my starting capital and make sure that I balance. When you're inputting numbers, sorry, you do it the same way. You just click on the cell where you want to put them and write whichever number you want. Okay. Okay, so I've just filled in a whole bunch of arbitrary accounts, cash, some accounts receivables, supply equipment, 2 accounts payable, and bank loan. As you can see, I've set it up so that I have 2 different columns for debit and credit, sort of like a rough draft of a trial balance. I'm going to show you your first benefit to using Sheets instead of just doing this in a Google Doc. So I know I need to make sure that my total assets or my total debits equal my total credits in my starting. And I haven't yet, as you can see, calculated my capital. Now I could do that pretty quickly using a calculator, but I'm going to show you a way so you don't have to use a calculator. So whenever you start with an equal sign, it knows you're going to be doing a formula in Sheets. So I start with sum, I do an open bracket, and I want to sum all my debit column, enter. And I would like to do the same with the credit column. I can do that either by clicking and writing the same formula, or just go to this corner and drag the formula across. And it's smart enough to understand that I want all of the section above as well. Now, as you can see, those do not balance. So to calculate my starting capital, I'll just go off to the side somewhere and I say equals this cell, subtract sign, this cell. Now I know that that's the number I need to plug in for my starting capital. So there we go. Now I have 2 totals at the beginning that are equal, and my difference over here is 0. Perfect. Starting accounts. Now this is, like I said, this is my starting accounts. What I would do next is insert another worksheet. So I add a sheet. You can do that here. You can do it up here, insert, and you can add another, it's inserting shell, oh, right there, down at the bottom, new sheet. We're going to need several of these. This is where I would personally put in my transaction analysis sheet. So I want to call it TAS. On here is where you could actually write your actual transactions as well. You can number them, but keep in mind once you do your T accounts and then your income statement, for your income statement specifically, you're really going to need to have a date anyhow because you need to know the range. So on the outline it does say to provide dates for each transaction. So transaction 1, just as an example, let me just see here. So let's just say that I didn't say anything on this first page about what my business is. So we're going to keep up with the Ms. Foley creates a webcast class, charges fee of $1,000. Don't worry about how horrible this looks like right now. Received $1 cash. the remainder is owing on account. It will automatically go across as long as there's nothing in any of these other cells. If I had something here, for example, if I already had a 5 here, it will only go across until it hits a cell that is populated with something else, but as long as everything's empty, it'll go straight across. So you don't have to worry about that wrapping or losing your text. Now I'm already going to go back and change my starting accounts so that one of my accounts receivable that's already here is going to be BAF, because I know that that's what I'm going to use anyhow, and I need to be using these accounts. So now I'm going to show you how to create your transaction analysis sheet. So if you remember, there was account name, first of all, the type of account, meaning asset, liability, owner's equity. Here you want to know if it's increasing or decreasing. The problem is, because this started with a plus sign, if I hit enter, it thinks that I have a formula. And that's because you cannot start with a plus sign or equal sign without it being a formula. If you want to enter formula, if you don't want to enter your formula, you begin with an apostrophe. So it tells you that right in the error message, but in case you miss it, you just need to start with an apostrophe first. You can see what's being inputted up here. As long as you do that, it enters it as text and understands that you're trying to say words instead of a formula. Now we said account type increasing or decreasing. So is that a debit or a credit, and by how much? Okay, just like we already had. Now, what I will probably need is my account name usually is longer. The A, L, or OE is very short. Plus or minus sign is also very short. Debit or credit is very short, and so is amount. So what I probably will need is a wider, so you can just drag it wider, a wider first column, and then the rest of these can be quite narrow. Let's go narrow, narrow. Oops. I had clicked on this cell. And if I go even more narrow, it should just, oh no, it won't wrap the text. You have to actually choose. If I wanted it to wrap that text, I could go into format, and you want to format within the actual cell, and you want text wrapping. So you'd say, instead of overflow in that particular cell, I want it to wrap. So it's going to then wrap around to the second line. And the amount, that's probably fine. So we want it to be, probably these are the headings. We'll do it bolded. We'll do them overall. We'll do them centered. There'll be some, yeah, that's fine. And then you want to set it up so that it's pretty obvious that, so this does all the borders around. So it's pretty obvious that this is the entry. So again, I'm going to just format this a little bit more to lengthen it out and give us whatever space we need. The amount we might want a little bit bigger, we'll see. Okay, the beauty thing here too is now that I've set this up for my first transaction, obviously the words will be different every time, but generally I'm always going to have probably 2 lines of transaction. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this and set myself up for 8 more transactions and just do paste. Leave a few blank lines, paste again. Leave a couple blank lines, paste again. If, let's just say, this one ends up being a compound or complex transaction with 3, you just need to click on the row. You can right click and insert one above or one below, and it'll extend it so you have your 3 lines. Okay, so right now this is set up to have all of your transaction analysis sheet. For this one, I'm going to input it, and then I'll show you the next step. I've inputted my 3 accounts, the type of accounts, increasing or decreasing. I just wanted to show you really quickly. Again, you need to do the comma, but they're all increasing, and whether that's a debit or credit, and by how much. One more thing I'm going to show you really quickly. It's very easy to format. So if you want just the simple numbers, that's fine. If you'd rather your numbers to, for example, show the cents, you can just add that in, $1 by adding the comma or to the decimal place. And or there's always the setting as well of cash. Format the number into currency. There's also an option for accounting. I don't like that it's going to do pounds. I will need to change the pounds. Yes, it converts it to pounds. Okay, hang on, I'm going to figure that out. Just an update in case yours does default to another currency. I looked it up in the help and basically said to go into format, and then I clicked on the very first top, which was number, and then got the bottom of that menu. It said more formats, and this is where you got to change your currency from this long, beautiful line of currencies. I'm choosing Canadian dollar, and now I apply, and it looks like it's fixed so far. So I'm just going to double check. If I change this into a currency, oh, it's still, Hey guys, I'm not sure. I might find it more efficient, but it's getting late. So if I do this and I change it to currency, it is going to automatically change it to pounds. But if I go format number, now that I've created it, the Canadian dollar shows up as an option. So I just have to do it through the menu. I can't figure out how right now. I'd need to change my toolbar, and that's more than I'm prepared to do right now. More in a minute. Okay. Okay, this is getting a bit long, so I am going to show you T counts. I might need to do the income statement in a separate post. We'll see. I'm going to show you really quick how I set up T counts when I do them in Sheets. And I'll explain why in a moment. I purposely shrink the first, the fourth, the fifth, sometimes even the sixth as well. Columns. Then these two stay normal. Then I do it again. 3 shrinks. Stay normal. And 1 more shrunken. I do that because now it's set up nicely for when I'm doing my T accounts. So for T accounts, highlight 2 cells and then you use this button which merges them. So now those 2 have just become 1. So let's just say this is going to be my cash account. I want to center that text and I want to choose the underline feature. So now this is a cash T account. We know cash needs to be fairly long. So now I'm going to choose that side and there we have it. You have a T. The reason I do the little shrunken on the sides is we know we have a starting amount in my cash account, which I'm going to quickly show you a little trick about. So I'm going to do an equals sign here because I know we start on the debit, and I'm going to go over to my starting accounts. If I ever changed anything then, if I change it in this, I'm going over and I just clicked on this account and then I hit enter for the cash value. It's automatically pulling it from my starting values. That means if I make any change here, it will automatically change it to my starting value here in the T account because it shows up here. That's where it's pulling it from. So that's just helpful because, again, if you end up shifting things around or changing things, you know that they're all going to be linked. Now for the first transaction, I haven't filled the rest in, but we'll just do the first one as an example. Again, I should actually have a date in here. I believe we said in the other one on October 18th. Miss Foley did this, so we know we got a debit to cash of $1 on October 18th. So here, this is where normally we would say transaction 1, but I'm going to say Oct 18. That's why I have the small columns on the sides, so that I can date the transactions and I get a debit of $1. Now I can write in that dollar, or again, I could choose to do an equal sign and go back to my transaction analysis sheet and pull the dollar straight from there. Either way, that's going to choose that formatting, so it puts it automatically into dollars. Fine either way. When it's time to total your T accounts, again, I would suggest, so you're going to do equals, and then you're going to do a sum and add up all of this side and add up all of this side. You'll do the same thing over here. So you're going to add up all your debits and all your credits. You also are supposed to have a total line, right? So we'll do the line. Now I'm going to put something in here just as an example. I'm going to say on Oct 25th, we ended up with a credit of $250. This is just so that, and well, sorry, I'm going to $360 and $800, and on this side we'll add in a few more as well. Okay, So now